Hello, and welcome back to my humble show. Here are some notable phrases from the president's authoritarian speech. This is not about freedom or personal choice.
This is not about freedom or personal choice.
I'll use my power to get them, you, out of the way.
If these governors won't help us beat the pandemic, I'll use my power as president to get them out of the way.
If you break the rules, be prepared to pay.
If you break the rules, be prepared to pay. And by the way, show some respect.
Get vaccinated.
Get vaccinated.
We're going to protect vaccinated workers from unvaccinated coworkers.
The bottom line, we're going to protect vaccinated workers from unvaccinated coworkers.
What an incompetent imbecile. And I hate saying that about a president of the United States. The words he spoke today were the words which the Democrats spent 4 years pretending that Donald Trump was saying. And if Donald Trump would have actually taken such an approach, the Democrats would be calling him a tyrant and demanding that he either resign or be impeached. No, I don't think it should be mandatory. I wouldn't demand it be mandatory, Joe Biden said of both vaccines and masks back in December of 2020.
No, I don't think it should be mandatory. I wouldn't demand it be mandatory, but I would do everything in my power. Just like I don't think masks have to be made mandatory nationwide. I'll do everything in my power as President of the United States to encourage people to do the right thing, and when they do it, demonstrate that it matters.
How about this April 2021 quote, courtesy of Nancy Pelosi? So here's the thing. We cannot require someone to be vaccinated. That's just not what we can do. It is a matter of privacy to know who is or who isn't.
So here's the thing. We cannot require someone to be vaccinated. That's just not what we can do. It is a matter of privacy to know who is or who isn't. I can't go to the Capitol physician and say, give me the names of people who aren't vaccinated so I can go encourage them to be, or make it known to others to encourage them to be vaccinated. So we can't do that.
How about this March 2021 quote, courtesy of Jen Psaki? There will be no centralized universal federal vaccinations database and no federal mandate requiring everyone to obtain a single vaccination credential.
There will be no centralized universal federal vaccinations database and no federal mandate requiring everyone to obtain a single vaccination credential. There will be no federal vaccinations database and no federal mandate requiring everyone to obtain a single vaccination credential.
Remember back when Kamala Harris said during a live debate against Mike Pence, who was actually capable of leading a task force, that she wasn't going to take the vaccine if Donald Trump said to take it?
If the public health professionals, if Dr. Fauci, if the doctors tell us that we should take it, I'll be the first in line to take it. Absolutely. But if Donald Trump tells us that we should take it, I'm not taking it.
That's how many Democrats felt, until Joe Biden arose from the ashes of his basement with the help of establishment politicians and people in powerful positions to his pedestal, where he now preaches and dictates his edicts, before retreating from each and every tough question as though we owe him rather than him owing us. The man and his administration are paying compliments to the Taliban while treating American citizens, myself included, like domestic terrorists. Listen, I'm all for masking and vaccination for those who desire it. But I have a huge issue with the government acting like a bunch of power-hungry parents. You can tout titles of empathy all you like, but mandates and manipulation are not the way to go. If you call me careless or heartless, then I guess I'll call you the same for failing to mandate bulletproof vests for people who live in cities, or for failing to mandate diets for the obese, or for failing to ban subjectively deemed unhealthy products on account of heart disease, or for failing to ban the buying and selling of tobacco and alcohol, or for failing to ban all motorized vehicles, since according to you and your climate czar, we're all going to be wiped out by the existential crisis in a few years. If, of course, we don't die in an automobile accident first. Shall I continue? No, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, and I'm also not an inconsistent, incompetent buffoon who needs to nap, yap, slap, and then be slapped on the wrist for making my own decisions, which I thought the Biden administration was all about. Speaking of Kamala Harris, today, on the very same day that Biden belittled our freedoms and personal choices, she said, and I quote, "When people are able to design their lives in a way that they can determine their own futures, we are a stronger democracy, and we are a stronger nation. When people are able to make choices without government interference for themselves in terms of their well-being and the well-being of their family, in consultation with whomever they may choose, we are a stronger society."
When people are able to design their lives in a way that they can determine their own futures, we are a stronger democracy and we are a stronger nation. When people are able to make choices without government interference for themselves in terms of their well-being and the well-being of their family in consultation with whomever they may choose, we are a stronger society.
Of course, this standard is applied selectively, and while millions of choiceless babies are aborted to the tune of self-adulation and even celebration, we're now being told that the decision which makes us a murderer is the decision to simply not fear enough for our own life that we decide to get vaccinated. Also, if you want to argue that a pandemic is about public health rather than personal well-being, then I must point out that mandating a person to have a vaccine injected into their own body is just about as personal as it gets. I despise this deeply vindictive and self-contradicting message about how the pandemic is only among the unvaccinated, meaning they're the ones who are suffering, and about how evil they are for putting the vaccinated in danger.
This is a pandemic of the unvaccinated. Second piece of my plan is continuing to protect the vaccinated. For the vast majority of you who have gotten vaccinated, I understand your anger at those who haven't gotten vaccinated.
It doesn't add up, and it's beyond divisive. Politicians will demand that we do this, that, and the other thing until we all hate, fight, and eventually die, whether of natural or unnatural causes. Joe Biden is no better when it comes to rhetoric, and as far as I'm concerned, he's far worse. He's also unfit for office. I mean, just the other day, he literally stated that by 2020, we need to make sure that all of our electricity is zero emissions. During the same power trip, he also claimed that tornadoes aren't called tornadoes anymore. He also claimed that nobody had been shouting at him shortly after multiple people had shouted at him. Not to mention the fact that he's still desperately dodging questions about the Afghanistan withdrawal, while preparing to fly out to California to help another corrupt elite defeat a black man, thus preventing him from becoming the first ever black governor of California. I find that odd, considering how Joe Biden picked his VP based upon skin color. Notice how he hasn't talked much about systemic racism lately? I could go on, but I'll stop now. I'm not at all denying the dangers of the time we're living in. I'm simply reasonable and realize that we're dealing with an increasingly weak yet tyrannical, grasping government, which is continuously disingenuous in order to hide the fact that our demander-in-chief can barely have a conversation without a teleprompter or externally prepared notes. Be safe. Be sane. Enough. Do not comply. And by do not comply, I do not mean that you should not take the vaccine. I mean that you should not take the vaccine simply because the demander-in-chief demands you to. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Keep in touch, keep in tune. New content is coming soon. Hopefully. Hopefully.
This is totally unacceptable.